with the other three. All right, so we'll start the meeting now. So, great. I will begin the remote meeting procedure to start the account. Meeting will be conducted remotely with the Zoom as soon as the full commission members will be remote. Remote attendees shall come to a forum and meeting is broadcast live on the further information. In the Zoom, you'll need to use the link on the camera or download the Zoom application to click the US account. Use one of the following numbers also on the agenda. You'll need whether ID to be only. Conducting meetings remotely, but meeting operations standard procedures as possible. However, use of platforms and distribution protocol. Whatever commissions and applicants on video or audio, public participants who join the regular meeting in the meeting, with video free from when the public testimony portion of the meeting. Members of the public can recognize the using raise hand function, comment participants to Zoom, with the make request to join the function. Joining the phone line with the so material teaching because for supports the screen. Certain testimony please state the name and address correctly. There's a microphone channel that allows for secondary presentation material in any public meeting. Use the code for now start already in June of use the main platform channel permanently. This will be handled with into agenda physical included in the right and will be created from anyone with a lot of time watching. Board members are asked to announce themselves and making a motion in seconds so clear to the audience and minutes that this is a motion for the board. All business entities, including the health of the state of North Dakota, through the meeting, to the end of the meeting, determination that employees of participants will be disconnected from the webinar at the time. Applicants are trying to have a training, work training, applicants that want to share a screen, anything of their much of the process, presentation questions by filling into the chair and the record. Never into the real chair themselves, many of screen sharing and share computer, applicants are trying to speak to that person and on the third. Alright, so I think that's more for so good. So how do we start the roll call? And here, Nancy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry.
Laura. Okay. Jake. William. Ken.
Pleasure.
Jason. I think we need
Present.
Alicia. Dan.
Here. Present.
Okay, so everyone is here, I think with the exception of Lauren. You folks have the agenda, so we'll start we have to review 2 sets of minutes. We'll start with November 7th, 2023 meeting minutes that I emailed episodes back. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns on them? And there were just a couple of things that you were there. And I believe on the agenda it said that was a hybrid meeting, but I believe that was a remote meeting. So I just need to change that. Page 2 on the old business, I believe, and Walt, maybe you can chime in here. In the old business, we were talking about, the streetlight stuff here. And you said that it was going to be a lead submission. I believe you meant LED in leadership and energy environmental. Okay. So Kathy, just change that to the capital LED like that. The only other thing on this is the big, we were talking about the water treatment facility. And I don't know if that you said that Redmond was 70% complete. The system for wells testing and well project, not sure if that's project, but you know, we recall they don't pay for them. Otherwise, we just straight there.
Yeah, I was probably referring to the fact that demolishing the inside of the existing well buildings, so the treatment indoor well buildings, so I may have said that it's probably fine.
Okay, all right, perfect. The only other thing that I'm put the last paragraph, page still with the typo that said public safety. And from a nomenclature standpoint, I'm not on it. Right. Moving forward, we're just always going to call it some public safety and public work. Like, moving forward. Okay. Someone just wants to make a motion to set for the meeting.
Stebbins, so moved.
Devin, they have a second.
Carlson, second.
Please roll call vote. So, yes. Sam? Yes. Name?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Jason?
Yes.
Now, we just move on to our next meeting minutes. So these are the ones that these are the ones on December 5th. Okay. Did anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the minutes that they saw?
Andy, there was one word chat was incorrectly listed as Chris. I think I'm going to be corrected. You guys see it?
Yeah, that was the one thing I think Kathy, you would have a question.
I just want to make sure.
Yeah, because it should be Kathy under others and the channel should be Chad written in. And then Chris, I think it was you, Chris, right? You attended last meeting at the bottom? Yeah, so that's the last name on that. So it's just make a note for change. And the only other thing that is under old business, I would just under that we have the security upgrade bullet point under early elementary school. We'll just give that its own heading. That's not a separate item there. And I think, at least you can tell us this is great. I have it, I'm going to call it Eastern School Security Upgrade Project. Does that sound right? Okay.
Schools.
Correct. Yeah. Okay. So we'll just call it that now. And the only other thing, Greg, you might have, on this system is where when we were talking about Conservation Commission delineation, I think there was one sentence, Mr. Thorne answered that delineation will be finalized for camera filing, and it said deviation is not expected. Does that sound right to you, Greg, or that?
So the delineation was finalized. That is what the results of the INRAD are. That is essentially the limits of the wetland area that was approved by the Conservation Commission. And we don't expect those to change in the future. We're close enough to when that INRAD was completed. We wouldn't expect the need to fall back and reflag and re-delineate.
But just in just for the purposes of the meeting, that's the delineation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, in the end, we don't expect any deviation from the approved delineation.
Okay. Okay, so then that is good. We should leave it as deviation. that being said, do I have a motion to accept those meeting minutes?
So,
Second,
Second, Carlson?
roll call vote. Ken,
Yes.
Amy,
yes.
Bennett,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yeah.
and James.
Yes.
Right. So those are approved. All right. We'll go from there. Appreciate that. I just wanted to. Why don't we go on to agenda items? Maybe we could start us out with the water treatment facility project, just to put that there.
There are not too much to report from the road plan. Actually, my last update, we're started the testing of the actual treatment systems. Unfortunately, we lost the main branch to the plant a couple weeks ago, and we're trying to resolve that. But do that, so right now, we're kind of on hold.
Is that in the building, Dave? Is there a regular building for that?
No, that's inside the building. So you know exactly what happened from the manufacturer up there. Investigate it. Let's start to replace it at the very least. Get moved.
Anyone have any, if you were guessing what percent complete you were?
I think invoice wise, we're probably 85%, 90% complete. Time wise, we're going to be just over the time. We're going to be probably seeing a change order requesting the contract to pump it out until March for the final start of testing and close out.
Did anyone have any questions, comments, concerns about the water treatment facility project before we move on? Seeing none, all right, thank you, Dave. And Walter, I don't know if you just want to chime in on the early elementary school project. I think we should a couple of things. That's fine. Yeah, that's it.
We just received our final CX report from our commissioning agent. So we'll take a look at that. We'll get that over to the design team. That's part of the lead submission that we're replicating. So that's all set. Perkins very likely to go ahead and get the lead submission started. Like we talked about last time, we had a couple rounds of back and forth with meeting very likely. Once that lead submission is approved, finalized, the final submission will close out and go from there. So that's really what we're working on the school. A couple of various items that get taken care of. I think it will bring a couple pieces of time that I have to replace to figure out from there, just to confirm when the materials can get here. But that's really where we're at now.
All right, so what the certification of silver or?
Silver is the minimum. I believe we're silver. We'll have to check on it. Typically, that's back and forth. If we're able to get a couple extra, then we'll go.
At least I don't know if you like to add anything to that.
Don't, just go ahead.
Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the school project? I think we'll get to move on to public safety and public works project. I think, to get us through that.
So pretty simple agenda here for the first project. We call the master project schedule and work the design development phase work plan. And then we'll have Piggy over some of the design updates. continue to show this in each meeting, highlight this design development period since the successful vote, taking us all the way through really the end of May for that what the project scope budget, the value management scoping exercise will take place along with that really that big final decision before this group either splitting out the fire substation or carrying that as one package, which will occur during the scoping session once we have the input from the estimators and from various general contractors around the state. So that we'll carry that design development for both 554 Depot Street and for 327 Main, the fire substation. So it's a very high level project schedule, tracking those in shot. Next steps, and just so everyone knows where we're at, design development, November through May. What you'll see going on, or what you hear about going on, additional site investigation, program validation, focus groups, department design review meetings, site design and preparation, and then the estimated evaluation and scope decision. We'll develop a CD and the bidding phase once that process has been finalized. Greg, I'll let you take it over from here with your slides and just let me know if you have concern.
Is it just a reminder for everybody, anybody joining, like it's 2 sites, 4 total buildings with a lot of structures for EBW. So large project, large scope, and so each piece is running a little bit independent of each other, but all kind of in tandem as we go through the project. So you'll see we'll start to break down things into either departments or divisions as we get through and kind of dive into the details of all of the different aspects of the project. Just jump to the next slide, Walter, and just kind of look at kind of the first step, which we've done some of before, but now we're getting much more in depth with the on-site exploration. So what you see here is Depot Street, the large site, and for the most part, borings, test pits, and 1 geothermal test loop. So 3 different things that are happening here. We're exploring in much more depth the soil conditions that are existing on the site. We're checking not only the water, groundwater levels, but making sure that we're testing for the infiltration rates on the existing site so that we can design the stormwater systems to meet all the requirements of the site and to really account for the added impervious area that we're adding. And the third thing we're doing is we're going to test the thermal conductivity of the site. This project includes a fairly robust geothermal system at both buildings, and so to do that and to design that, the way we do that is we essentially install 1 well, and we test it for a 48-hour period to test the thermal conductivity that we can kind of put into the ground or pull from the ground. So that test allows us to understand what that conductivity is, and therefore size the well field or the bore field to account for the building load once we figure those out. So it's a data point for us to do. It's a fairly extensive test, which is really important. These wells tend to be very expensive per well, and so we want to make sure that the design isn't either under or over, and we don't have to adjust at the end. So we want to build in a little bit of a buffer to make sure we have some buffer in there in case something goes wrong, but we don't want to undershoot the number of wells. We don't want to overshoot the number of wells and have too much capacity or too little capacity when it comes to the final condition. So we'll jump to the next slide, which is Main Street, so the fire substation. So the same process here, just a little less intense because we're a much smaller project, much smaller building. So but same steps to go into understanding what those conditions are. Now that we really know where the building is going to be, we can go into a little bit more depth to make sure that we capture the scope of work, any soil amendments or things like that we need to do to make the building right. It'll never be 100% perfect, right? We don't have X-ray vision. That's why the project is built in contingency funds to make sure that we have some room for adjustment, but we try to get as close as we possibly can. So you'll see, on a fairly small site, we have 10 or 11 areas where we're exploring soils plus a geothermal test well. So that's kind of the big push, and thank the DPW for coordinating with us, getting us access into some of those areas. It's been a little struggle with the weather. It has not been cooperating, but we're in there, and those will be starting this week to get people on site with those explorations. Just a brief update on some things that happened since we last met. We talked about working on geothermal. We knew we were in the new version of the stretch code. Mass Save has updated their program a little bit, so for projects that are in the kind of position we're in, they're no longer supporting projects that are connected to natural gas services. So in our case, because the committee selected to go geothermal, this is really kind of a non-issue for us at this point because there was very little being served by natural gas. The generators will still be diesel generators. That's allowed. In theory, you could install a private propane system and you would still participate in the project. At this point, it's kind of, not really a winning situation for the project. So I suspect we won't have that, but this is a fairly new rule that came out kind of as the project was in vogue. I just wanted to give the committee an update on that. Good news is it's really not an issue for us, but it is a slight difference from what was approved. Given that Mass Save money is $22 million, I think, something in that range for the total project. It's, we could look at other avenues, but it's likely that to make it all work, this is probably where I want it to go. It's an all work.
Okay. Andy, could I ask questions?
Absolutely, go ahead.
So, can you just talk a little bit more around what the functional impact is? I know because we were primarily moving on geothermal bridge that the thing for primary backup was electric. So this means like the fire department, for instance, like pitch hits, everything's all electric. But
Yeah, so
what is the worst case downside of this?
I'd say under 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it would have been a different answer. I'd say now we're much more comfortable with buildings of this size being all electric. Given that the town has a fairly robust solar program and is likely to expand that helps you by kind of taking away some of the fluctuations in cost. You're able to, with solar, kind of be a little bit more or a little bit less in flux with the electric rates, which is helpful. But those things are still there. For the project that's designed, as we presented it previously, the major things that we were doing with natural gas were domestic hot water, which is a fairly small load, cooking appliances throughout the building, which is, in terms of monetary impact, is nothing essentially. It's more of what people prefer. In those cases, we will go likely to induction ranges. It's usually the range that's the issue, the evidence not an issue. Induction ranges, and if there are grills on site, for example, when a fire department usually they have a grill outside, they'll have to have a propane tank on it, just like you would at your house. A lot of times we'll have to plant those in. Those are kind of big impacts. The rest of the heating system was already with geothermal and electric. And that was already basically a requirement in the Mass Save program. They just stepped it up a little bit. And, what this is an architect explained to us, but gas companies are required to pay into these programs. And as these gas loads drop from the building, their incentive for installing the gas infrastructure and cover these buildings really goes down. So it's kind of an inevitability where if we're not So that's the situation that is likely occurring at the state level, and that's why they're rolling back. So it was a bit of a surprise to us when they announced it, but it is being applied, throughout the state. We're lucky that we plan for geothermal, and it really won't have a huge impact. So I guess does that kind of help clarify what's changing or may change a little bit?
Yes, honestly, I would just ask one follow-up question. Does this have any impact in the long-term payback calculations that we're relying on as far as our geothermal? In the first place, it sounds like most of the natural gas is going to be for not like building only the HVAC purposes. So we still anticipate the IRA will that saves money on offsetting different.
Yep.
Is there any reason that having to be a little bit more for some of these appliances is going to eat into the payback or nothing substantial enough to be worth this time?
I'd say the next round of life cycle cost analysis will tell us a little bit more. Because it's geothermal, I think most of that will be mitigated down, but yes, right now, per BTU, which is how we can kind of measure everything equally, electric is more expensive than natural gas. That's just kind of how it works. I'm not sure, if you compare that's just on delivery rate from the grid if you were buying like direct from, or using your base rates as you start to get into solar agreements and PPAs and things like that. The needle moves a little bit, but I suspect that it really won't change it much. The payback on this, once you include the incentives, is instant. So you may go from saving instantly to saving in 2 years or something like that, but still within a really positive payback considering the length of the system.
Thank you.
Wait, I was just going to add a follow-up question with Juan. What would be the plan then for water heating? Will it still be standalone appliances? Tie those into the geothermal?
Yeah, so we'll tie them into the geothermal loop with a kind of electric backup, essentially. So we'll pull from the geothermal loop. That'll get you there most of the time. When it doesn't, an electric system will kick in just to boost the temperature of those areas. So it's likely not many more wells, it's a little bit more equipment, or just different equipment inside the building. We have a pretty good handle on this now, that these have been happening more frequently. So I don't suspect it will be an issue.
I understand. The other question is probably more for you, but from a domestic hot water standpoint, it's probably not a lot. I just didn't know if any of the wash stations be DPW, but that would seem to me to be higher.
Yeah, that's a good question, but I mean, we'll have to pick that up.
Those are going to be gas right there.
Yeah, all the hot water heaters were gas fired. That was really all we had. This hot water fired. Brian may be able to answer the washing equipment, vehicle washing question, but they're typically not heating that water very hot, maybe. So it's something that the geothermal system is good at. It's hard to get it up to 180, right? You can get it up to 110 pretty quickly with the geothermal system through the pumps. It's just a matter of sizing it correctly and having the right infrastructure in place. And so we can certainly get that in there. The good news is the equipment is a little bit less expensive up front sometimes, so it's there. Basically a wash cost on the upfront. We'll size the ground loops appropriately to cover this.
And it just, I'm not familiar with the washing there does exist equipment like that that doesn't require gas.
Yeah, as far as I remember, there's only just like water connections to equipment, and it goes from there. research some like a lot of places, but you know, we will figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, that to me would seem like the biggest demand of everything. Did anyone else have any questions at this point? Questions for
Maybe
anyone?
I'm just going to say, I'm glad this is being discussed. I think we should, you know, some counter things we bring up, and we brought up, and Andy as well, because, you know, we've gotten the cart a little bit out of hand. So we all know, we know the idea of electrification sounds great, but we've got infrastructure in place to handle that. But the short-term costs will be greater for us. We can hope that the long term will be less, right? Because we're going to mitigate some of the long-term costs. So let's not be ignorant in going about it the way that mass is, because when I hear that it's $1.5 million towards this project, right? Ish, that this could be a wash if we opt to go a different route. Now, not for the long, not for the year 10, 20, 30, for the first 10 years, this probably costs us more. Without that, regardless if we you know, just put that money aside and opted to have natural gas, which is a heck of a lot less expensive than dealing with propane or diesel. And we've got to put the infrastructure in place to utilize it, and then we've got to have service and pay for having the truck in. So I'm glad we're all through that. So thank you.
Jamie, thank you. I could just clarify where at least what I heard from Brian is we're hoping to get 0 year and 2 year payback, not 10. But when do we expect when is that next round of life cycle cost analysis?
So at the end of design development, we'll have a much kind of more robust model at that point. So design development, so May timeframe, we'll have that in and reevaluate that at the end of this phase.
And so not we'll have to see this happen. For some reason, that life cycle cost analysis in May, access is actually no longer a 0 to 2 year payback, it's 10 to 20. Is that so far down the design process that you can't pivot, or
For domestic water now, like if we were going to try to change back to, gas-fired rooftop units or something like that, then yes, that would be for domestic water. It's not really an issue. Again, I suspect that the payback will be relatively quick as the incentives are fairly robust.
but Jamie point taken, we'll keep a close eye on it. And I know I feel like once Brent wouldn't sit on it, there's still not design ideas as we're talking about this sometimes they do sometimes change. And so it sounds like this is not a huge area.
Well, thank you all. We really appreciate your time.
And Greg, we should have the report from the geotechnical engineer on the ground source loops, correct?
Yeah, so the goal of doing the test wells kind of now is that by the time we get the end of DD, we have a sized geothermal field, so that we can include that in the estimate. We don't, some projects choose to wait till construction to do the test well. They make a general assumption of the size of the capacity of a single well. They size the field to that, and then they test it in construction. They adjust during construction. Given the size of this project, we didn't feel like that was the right approach, so we included that scope within the design services. We're performing this test well with a consultant that as a consultant and as a driller that goes out and does these all the time. The driller's skillings there, one of 2 preeminent drillers in New England that does this work. The information we gather from that will be, as accurate as we can get with one well, when we're probably going to be doing 30 or 40 per building. And then, we'll have that sized in so we can price that in design development. So half of the energy modeling is the modeling part. The other half is the construction costs and how that pays back. So you kind of need both pieces to be able to really do that cost analysis. And so that's why we view those at the end of the phase.
Yeah, I just think for the committee, we can have that more information. Like Greg said, typically a lot of times we don't do these in some construction, and we end up carrying usually many more wells than we need.
Yeah, it's a fair point. It's not a right or a wrong answer necessarily. It's just, we make a judgment on what we think is the best approach by project. And here, given the complexity of the project and how many things are going on and the likely cost, we thought it was pertinent to have that information up front. And so we didn't carry, like say, a large contingency of wells in theory, and then scale it back through construction. We wanted some more accurate information up front so that we came into design and a bit more information.
Greg, just to ask in general, so we don't have any concern that we won't have capacity. It's just a matter of turning how many.
Yeah, you're right. Ground to the ground is all at relatively 50 degrees. It's how fast the heat transfers, really. I don't suspect we'll have any issues. These are pretty standard in Massachusetts now. There's design stuff there in the building to make sure we're trying to balance the system so that the relative amount of heating we're putting in the summer to cool the building is close to the relative amount of cooling we're pulling out as the seasons flip. We want to make sure that those things are relatively balanced and makes it both more efficient and long-term longevity to the wells. It's an important thing to do. You never get it absolutely perfect, but that's taken into consideration. Dan, it's not being much to others, but GEI is geothermal consultant on the project, which is fairly typical. So the team has a lot of experience doing this stuff in the area in conditions like we have here.
Yeah, and that was my question. I know that kind of spraying, to the footprint of Depot Street, but we're not going to run out of room for this like this.
No. In fact, the board depths have been allowed to increase the last year or so. So you can actually go a little bit deeper now than you could before. I don't suspect that we'll have an issue with area. It's likely that we'll be under pavement in most cases. So it's not a problem to go under pavement. These things kind of, once they're in, there's not much to do with them. Couple them together and bring them to the building.
All right, anyone have any other questions up to this point? Right?
Sure, and just to walk everything a little bit through the process that we do internally, right now, similar to when we started the project, it seems a little slow, and that's because there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to get things kind of stood up, the team stood up, the stuff that we finalized in schematic design, cleaned up, ready to go, account for any of the value engineering that we did at the end of schematic design. So those things are being implemented into the plans now. And we're going to go through a process similar to, I'm sure, that you went through on the elementary school. We're going to go back and we're going to validate the program, right? We're going to make sure the things we talked about before the project was approved, all those things still stay the same now. We're going to check programmatic requirements. We're going to check staff counts. Things change over time. We're going to check equipment counts, capitalizing equipment. We want to make sure that the size and counts all still fit the program we anticipated. And if we need to adjust. Next, we're going to go into design requirements, right? We start really high up and we get a lot of information down on page, but that stuff has to be refined. So it's an iterative process. We go through these probably dozens of times, hundreds of times with departments, going through things down to the room level, down to Chief Alexander, when we go through the thermostat level, to make sure things are in the right places, making sure we understand exactly how the user groups want the building to function, and making sure we kind of build that out in the course of the overall design, so we can bring that back to the committee for your review, your approval. And then finally, the next step, as these kind of happen at the same time, is documenting that. So making sure we put that information down on a page so that that estimating stage of design development, the estimators understand what the scope of the project is. They understand the quantity that we're asking for and the quality of things that we're looking for. That's how they understand the pricing and bring their expertise and experience from the market. So to do this, there's really a lot of meetings, most of which are with user groups, some of which are with focus groups that many of you were involved in. So for police, fire, and public works, there'll be that initial program validation for the buildings, but then we get into kind of different departments or divisions, go through their areas in a little bit more detail, and try to pull out a scope for all those things, get it into the documents so it's understood by the estimators, and we can make sure that we're bringing along the departments and their staff to understand exactly what they're going to get as in detail as we can in design. Finally, we're engaging with the focus groups. So those focus groups are kind of defined by the town. Exterior design, interior design, site design. We've kind of broken up our sustainability and NEP and design mechanical systems just to have some clarity there and allow kind of more input from a different set of folks to give us some input on those things that maybe don't come away from this revision. So just as a kind of broad picture overview, the focus groups, we have some weeks that we're looking to target some of these, so these jumbled order, kind of in the same order we had originally. But we're looking to do these in a somewhat specific order. We'll work with PMA to reach out to those groups and get them scheduled sometime around those weeks. They're not a dead set thing. They're as a general time frame to get us full project meetings. So I think most know that we meet bi-weekly OPM designer and representatives from the administration. And then as we get into the user groups, those will be weekly for the first couple months, month and a half or so, to go through different things in each department, making sure that we're kind of honing in on those details as we go.
Great, just a quick question right there. The focus groups, those are remote, right? Like I think last time.
Yeah, that seemed to work last time, but I think it's probably the most convenient for folks that are working or just out. Things work really well, so I would say it's at the discretion of the committee, but I think it's perfect.
No, that's fine. As long as you just want to maybe shoot me and hello when it's coming out, and just let the group, hopefully everyone can see and then pick one of those for going. I think last time I was doing one with the Dan, are you only one of those? I think
We have those listings, so we utilize the same listing we previously had. They're quite extensive. And with both of those, once we get the schedule, we'll get the date and everyone's calendar, and we'll look to get an agenda out and get the board to give everyone a reminder and then the next week.
yeah, as long as we like we're up to everyone. All right, great. I just want to talk about
Just to the next slide. And I think this is good. You take over. Back over.
Yeah, so this is just our NBC meetings that get scheduled. Calendar, the invites are out. The only one we have on there is the 29th, and that is that there is if on the 14th where everyone's given the scope and if you want to just finalize on the 29th, that's fine. But it's really that sequence period we have at Thanksgiving discussion and review. So really nothing's changed there. The topics of the meetings, you really said the important ones that are those for the MDC and then the first potentially 2 day meetings is definitely important. So then you go we'll have those in the calendar. I'll update you for going virtual on these. I'll update the calendar race to make sure that they're virtual. So that we
Yeah, I think don't want to remote, just so we can work through these. We might change that, but I think let's plan on these being talk about it.
So that's everything you had, Greg, you guys have, and Brian, you guys have anything else for the group?
I think that's
I'll turn it over back to Andy if any questions or comments from you.
Yeah, did anyone, I know we kind of talked different points in the presentation, did anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns about public safety, public works? So I guess, I think Coliseum, right?
Sorry, I guess it's been more than 2 weeks since I've seen long. I guess that's been 2 years. How are we looking? So I know weather was an issue with getting out there and doing test bits and things like that. Are we still feeling good as far as our timing? The same close coordination with planning staff, so there's no surprises or challenges with filings for Concom. Are we still thinking roughly the same timeframes for wetlands permitting? How is that looking?
yeah, same time frame for that. We were able to work through getting access to full scope of Depot Street without filing a device. It was great. We're there now. Trees have been cleared by DPW, and depending on the weather, it'll be sometime this week, but they'll be out there for both geothermal and the geotechnical. Tomorrow they were supposed to start. It's going to be a little windy. There might be a couple trees on those sites, so we play it by ear. We're touching base with them tomorrowly, but I suspect you'll see rigs to some extent out on sites this week. So just in terms of duration, just to follow up. So for Main Street, for geotechnical, it's like a 2-day duration. Usually get 4 to 5 borings a day done. So that's 2 days. We'll have to report back in 2 weeks or so. For Depot Street, it's a little bit more extensive. So it's like a 6 to 7 day duration out on site. Again, it's a week and a half. It's about a 2-week return on the reports. We'll know pretty early on kind of how it's going. We suspect we know how it's going already, but we want to just have data points there so that we can go to bid documents. They have a clear understanding of what's on the buildings, and the way we typically write these specifications is basically we tell them what's there, we tell them what they need, and their responsibility is to figure out how to get there. And so they use this to quantify the amount of stone they'll have, in this case stone they'll have to bring in to mend the soils to get us to the right soils on the building, things like that. So we know basically what the soils are. This just gives us a lot more finite detail and bidders the ability to understand the site better. And in case something is an issue, we catch it underneath the building. I don't suspect that'll be the problem. That'll be a problem here, but this is the due diligence.
Nancy, do you have a question? No. Oh. Because I can't see everyone on the screen, so does anyone else have any questions?
Hey, Andy, the solid waste, just going to need to be dealt with. Where are we going? Who is that? Where are we going?
So Western Sampson's team has an LSP on site. or we'll have an LSP on site to kind of evaluate those things, do some groundwater baselines, do some soil sampling to just make sure that the phase 2 that was done a number of years ago is still accurate. This is like what was found before, and then essentially, build that into a series of documents that defines that area, and then we build in the restoration of those areas, Jamie. So some areas will become like replicated wetlands, for example, fake wetlands, I'd say. That's kind of that area that is next to the wetlands that kind of input buffers that had a lot of that solid waste in it. We're going to dig that stuff out, get rid of it, proper disposal, and then turn that into some additional habitat for what was there, probably there previously, was often disturbed by former use.
Thanks, Craig. That's a good question, James. I guess, Craig, and this, you might not know the answer, but the solid waste and parking lot is just on the footprint of those 10, 11 acres, right? That are to the right of the power line.
Yeah, so it goes into the easement a little bit, and while we're there, we pull that stuff that's into the easement a little bit out. It's, you can't, it's pick up plastic bags and bottles, you can't really stop at the easement line, so then there's likely some easement or, approvals we'll have to get from the power company to do the work within the easement, but yeah, the stuff that's on that side of the easement can be taken out.
And just because I walked it a long time ago after we purchased it, back a bunch of years, there was some other stuff on the other side of the power line, but that's not in the scope, correct?
No, we didn't put that stuff in that scope. Some of it was removed previously from the DPW, Dave. I think most of it's overground. We found a couple of chairs and some other things over there in the brush, but they're pretty deep back in there, and there's not the kind of size and quantity of stuff that is kind of directly adjacent to our site or on our site.
Yeah, I remember that being empty back down. They were tested, and I remember that it was rusting away. So I just wanted to know, how far you were going.
So I think we showed a slide of a lot of those things previously, like the stuff that's all on that side of the power easement, most of the big dumps of plastic bottles and bags, and there's trailers and things like that out there. That's the entire project is trying to do.
Yeah, but far and away, the things on the right of the power line do get a lot more stuff. Again, 5, 6 years. Did anyone else have any questions, comments, concerns about the project? All right, not seeing any. Appreciate everyone will give that presentation and great answer. But I think the only other two things I have besides this project, Lisa, I didn't know, we kind of bumped, the security project we were going to meet, I think, with the designers over Zoom, so we bumped it off this calendar, but does it make sense to at least right now plan on February 13th?
Yes, I believe that they are, I'm just trying to scroll through my emails to see the most current, the most recent. Yes, they are looking to meet with my team first, on Thursday, so we should totally be doing
I'll coordinate that. But we'll plan on having it, but I'll confirm it for,
Sure.
for 13th. That was it. The only thing I'm going to share is Jamie and I are going on DCAT. He's dragging me over to DCAT with it Thursday, January. They're going to be interviewing. I don't know if they're in person or not.
was a community forum, which anyone that lives in Easton is familiar with the solar and her show. So Walter, I thought we might just circle wagons with you for a few minutes in the next day or two. At least, so we're going on a program that is very much, as I said, was this progress moving forward, and it's just speaking points about where we are now and where we go from here. Progress in the past, in order to improve it, and that's all we're involved in. It's very high level. Talking about really stuff about history, kind of a little more eloquently, and after maybe that's what we're putting.
Yeah.
Keeping points together. Thursday. Really nothing confusing.
We'll prep you guys. Just let us know when you want to chat. We're happy to go over anything.
Perfect. Thank you.
But maybe we'll pull Greg in for some technical stuff.
Yeah, we'll see you again.
I'll circle back with you guys.
All right. And I have your hammer. Let's have you just okay. Coming up. All right. Seeing none, we already have a motion.
So steps.
Second, Bruce.
Yes. Ken?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yeah.
And Ryan, yes.
Yes.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone, for continuing. February 13th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
Right.